Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Good evening. We are Mind Over Matter. My name is Kerry Mussington, and today I bring you Joe Fletcher, Pursuit of the Truth, but particularly we bring in Simon Benn, who's going to talk to us about adoption. And I'd love to hear everything about what you have to say. Joe, thank you for raising awareness with us and then bringing on somebody else to give us another point of view from the world and the troubles that happen in real life. And so we'd like to hear all about the adoption. Please, Simon, tell us all what you have to say around that subject.
Hello, thanks for having me on. This is my favourite topic. Okay, so I can talk. How long do you want me to talk for? I'll keep on talking. Okay, so I'm Simon Benn. I wasn't always Simon Benn. For the first 5 weeks of my life, I was David Anthony Flower. So that was a bit of a shocker when I found that out 5 years ago that I'd had a name. I didn't know whether who knows. So yeah, I'm 54. I was adopted at 5 weeks. I was adopted at 5 weeks old, and I had a nice entry into life. You know, I didn't suffer any abuse or neglect before I was adopted, and then I had a very comfortable, nice middle class upbringing in a loving home. Not a lot of hugging, but a loving home. My mum and dad couldn't have children themselves naturally, so they did a lot of fostering, and then they adopted me, and then they adopted my little sister Penny a couple of years later. She's not biologically related to me. The only thing is that we both came through the same adoption council in Liverpool. So we grew up outside of Leeds, kind of between Leeds and Harrogate, near a place called Wetherby. A little village called Bardsey, an estate called Bardsey, and then in Wetherby itself, which is 12 miles from Leeds. And I had no adoption issues or struggles until I hit 40. Right, and when I hit 40. I was told so young about being adopted that I don't even remember not knowing. I was told in a really gentle way. I'm pretty sure I was told. I had this storybook in my bookshelf as a kid, and it was all about a couple that fell in love, got married, and adopted a child. And this is how I was told. And it must have been before I was 2, because my sister came along around that time. So it was never a secret. They were open about it. We pretty much never discussed it. I found out at 40 that my childhood teddy bear, this little fella, I'm holding up my. If you're watching on, if you're listening on audio, I'm holding up Ted, the rather imaginatively named teddy bear, who is resplendent in a blue and brown. Does that combination go? I don't know. So he's got a knitted top and a knitted pair of trousers, knitted for Ted by my dad's mum, my grandma. So I found out at 40 that he was from my it was a gift from my birth mother. And at first I thought that was a little bit curious that they hadn't told me that before, but just a little bit curious, that's all. But then when I was telling the story about it to somebody else, I had this massive eruption of anger that came out totally out of nowhere. And my birth mother didn't love me enough to keep me. What's this teddy bear? It's a consolation prize. I'm not swearing, but I was swearing a lot at the time. I'm keeping my voice fairly low, but at the time it was like an eruption of anger. And I hadn't, and it came from nowhere. I'd never thought like those thoughts before. I'd never felt that anger before. I had, it was just completely out of the blue. My challenges for the previous probably 10 years or so ago, 10 years were actually business related. So I took over the family business, and the financial roller coaster that most small business this go through. Became an emotional roller coaster for me, despite the fact that generally speaking, we were okay. We had lots of cash in the bank. We had some bad years, and we had some good years, but we were never desperate. We always had, it was, we had nothing to worry about logically, but we aren't logical creatures, are we? So success for me, what I defined as success was pretty elusive. It took me a long time to get to what I thought success, and it was like a hollow victory. It didn't give me it didn't stop me worrying about the future, which I was kind of hoped it would have done. So around that time when I'd had some success and it had been a hollow victory, I was the time that I found out that the teddy bear wasn't my the teddy bear was from my birth mother, and that kick-started. So I had two things going on in my life: the fact that, in very broad terms, business success hadn't made me happy, and adoption had made me really sad. And I went on to I went on a consciousness, personal development journey, self-development journey, whatever you want to call it, to try and get to the bottom of what happiness is, where it comes from, and how I could be happier. So that's kind of, so that was 14 years ago that all kick-started. When I was 40, I'm now 54. A few years after I'd learned some really important stuff to me, I decided to become a coach. And I've coached in different areas, done a lot of work in schools with kids, wasn't getting the traction that I wanted with that, and realized that I needed to change. I needed to do something completely different. And then in November last year, I decided, right, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna narrow I'm going to get out there with my story, my teddy bear story, and I'm going to help adoptive parents who want to know what's going on for their adopted child, and empower them so they don't need to rely on the shrinks. Because I tried shrinking and it doesn't work. What's worked for me is coaching. Shrinks just want to look around. The ones I found anyway, I'm sure there are good ones. Shrinks just wanted to look around in the darkness, root around in the manure that I've been through in my life, and that did me no favors whatsoever. Whereas coaches wanted to move me forward, and that I'm a big advocate of coaching, so that's why I'm a coach. I'm a coach to adoptive parents who want to understand what's going on for their kids and empower their kids, and my work in that area is based on what I've done with 1,600 kids in schools. I've got a process as well as the adoptive experience. And also adult adoptees. So adult adoptees who are who are where I am, where I was, which was in a bit of darkness, in a low level mood, thinking that adoption had basically destroyed their chances of being happy in life, which is where I got to in some stages. So that's kind of.
Wow, I have so many questions, Joe. Amazing. I'm going to get to how you two connected in a bit, but hearing the anger, hearing the what you felt. Did you feel? Because I heard you didn't mention the word, but at that time, did you feel rejected?
Yes, I felt unloved. I felt like in that moment, I felt unloved. I felt rejected. I felt discarded. I felt intense anger towards my birth mother. And the big thing that I learned was I was further down the line is I was totally wrong. I was absolutely and completely and utterly totally wrong to feel like in my assumptions, in what was going on in my head. I got my adoption file, right? And it was clear from the adoption file how she had, she'd been going out with this guy for 5 months. She'd got pregnant. He didn't want anything to do with her. She'd decided she wanted me to have 2 parents. She couldn't provide two parents. This is 1960s, remember, it's 1967. So things are a lot different now. I'm just talking about what's going on for now. So from my adoption file, I could see from the planning that had went in before. She didn't just like have me and think, all right, what are we going to do with him next? It was all planned out. It was like meticulously planned. It was, and so she wanted me to have the best start, and she believed that the best start that I could have was the adoption route. That's what she thought. So from all the letters that I got, and also but the most powerful one that I got that was in the adoption file was one from her 4 days after she had dropped me off, given me away, handed me over, whatever you want to call it, taken me to the adoption agency, saying that she'd wanted to buy a teddy bear for me to have something from her. Okay. But the traffic was really bad. She couldn't get to the shop. Could the adoption agency councilwoman ask my mum and dad if my biological mother, Pat Flower, could buy a bear, would they give it to me? And like I could, it was the desperation and the love, the desperation she felt and the love she felt for me was clear. Reading her letters, and like I was connected to her. That the letter I was reading was 50 years old. It smelt really weird because it had been obviously stuck in some kind of archive box, getting slightly moldy and damp. And but I could, reading that, seeing a handwriting, blue handwritten ink, and feeling the woman at the end of her tether. I could feel that I could feel her being at the end of the tether and her love for me through that letter 50 years later. So I was totally wrong. I was the idea that I had in my head that I was unloved and rejected, I was totally wrong.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Idea, perception, thought, of not knowing who you are, your identity. You get confused of, hold on a minute, this is the life. And even though it's in your face, it kind of doesn't resonate until something else crops up. And did you get to meet her?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, she died, and she died a long time before I started even thinking of looking for even anything of that. So she died. I can't remember exactly now, 2003 or 2004, and I didn't even start looking for her until 5-6 years ago, something like that.
Any photographs? Did you get any photographs?
I got some photographs. Yeah, I got some photographs. She doesn't look like me. I don't think so. My wife thinks that she does. So we know the name of the biological father, and it's an Irish name. And I've got quite Irish colouring, dark hair. But some people say I look like one of the characters off Emmerdale Farm.
I don't watch it.
The bad guy, one of the bad guys. So I've got like dark straight hair. It's Irish. It's kind of Irishy looking, but I've not got blue eyes. A lot of Irish people are very pale, but I'm quite olivey. I'm quite good at tanning, swimming and tanning. I'm quite good at. It's one of my. But I don't take a lot of credit for that. I'm modest about that because I don't actually have to work very hard to do that. But, yeah.
So, Simon, you mentioned the word anger, and I got that because it comes with confusion. You said I was wrong. I don't believe there are wrongs or rights. I believe it's a journey and a discovery. All right, and I believe that time, place, location. That's where we are around that. When you come back into 40 something years later, at 40, your life changed again. At 40, it's like you had an awakening or something.
Yeah.
So when you used anger, you used the word anger, resentment. You felt discarded and unloved. plenty of other words to go with that. Was you displaying, because we're talking about emotions as here, but was you displaying any kind of awareness that your friends or family would understand or didn't see, such as, was you drinking, was you smoking, did you hit depression? Because it sounds to me that with all those mixed emotions, it's kind of in a bog state of mind.
Most people would have no idea what was going on.
But when you look back and reflect, can you see any patterns of behavior that perhaps might have been worrying for people? That, hold on, why Simon used to be so happy, and he's down and...
No, I mean, I'd probably been worried about, see, adoption wasn't really, adoption wasn't my issue.
No, I can see that.
My issue was business. My issue was business. Like, how am I going to get my business on an even keel, and how am I going to, how am I going to get business working? So
did you find that you used then what was going on with, I'm listening intently, did you find that what was going on with you, even though you're focused on the business, it was almost like you're looking for something to blame because that isn't working? No, it wasn't like that. Because when someone mentions the word anger and all of these things, even though you was in a loving relationship, it wasn't about the adoption as well, where your state of mind was. You're telling me that you replaced this negative energy that you was thinking into something more positive and constructive. Well, how did you do that?
What I mean, I'm. Have you heard of Stephen? Have you heard of David Hawkins and his human scale of consciousness?
Is Mr. Hawkins? That was the man in the chair, isn't it?
No, that's Stephen Hawkins. Right, Stephen Hawkins.
Because he'd done a good theory test on that one too, and I watched that movie, which then actually makes you wake up.
Yeah, I don't really get. I don't think I've watched the whole of the movie. I don't really get Stephen Hawkins. It's too for me.
High consciousness.
So David Hawkins is has developed a scale of human consciousness, which could be. So he calibrates different mood states, and we're going up and down those mood states all through the day. So 0 is dead, right, and 1,000 is Krishna or Buddha, or the great religious avatars. 200, above 200 is life affirming, and below 200 is detracting of life. So pride, as in the pride of the American Marine Corps, is 180. So they're full of pride, but they kill people, because they're soldiers, right? So it detracts from life. Shame, where there's a lot of shame around adoption, that's at 20. So it's a really low state. Whereas something like the unconditional love of a mother, is at about 500, something like that. So there's a scale of human consciousness, and our level of consciousness is going up and down all day. So 1 minute we're over the moon, we're having a great time talking about the subject that matters. The next minute an email comes in and you think, oh, that's not going to work, and the mood goes down. So I believe that's what happens to all of us during our life, so that's for me what's going on. It's not about a mindset, it's about a level of consciousness. It's just kind of my take on it, really.
No, I get it. I called it awakening. You just called it consciousness. It's the same thing for me. I get it. Cool. I could talk to you all day long on this adoption thing, but you sound like your parents have done a wonderful, amazing, nurturing, and truthful and honest in allowing you to understand your identity. which, kind of was put on the table, and it didn't seem like that
Well,
he hid anything from you.
yeah, I mean, yes, nurturing job, but the identity stuff, it kind of, I guess it depends what you mean by identity for me.
Well, they didn't. Well, some people look. I've dealt with somebody who was adopted before, and the adopted parents, even in the 20s, 30s, refused to give any information about that person's background, and because they refused to give that person any information, I had to go hunting to find the birth parent of the
Well, I
little
had to do.
information that I had. And I tell you, I put out the announcement with the little bit of information I had. I actually found the original mother, and it was a heartfelt reunion, one of which I documented. She won't mind me saying her name. Her name is Emma. And it was heartfelt reunion, and I was there at that point for
Brilliant.
that reunion, finding that adopted mother, and they met. She met a granddaughter as well. They filled in the gaps, and then sadly, a few years later, the lady died. But had I not intervened to help her find, or just fill in the missing jigsaw puzzles that she had answers, she wanted answers to, and then I found out, which was the funny part of what you said earlier, that you actually do have 2 birth certificates. So she was named one child, and then in the other breath she was named another child. So I was able, from that just one birth certificate, find out the hospital, get the paperwork. Then I got so many more details of the location and where they were, and they happened to be in Lowestoft, which wasn't very far from the lady. And it was just like, so we've come from a Edmonton area to Lowestoft area to finding the lady reunited back to her mother in the Ipswich area. So that was a beautiful story. And she just says, if she would have been always wondering if she hadn't got those answers.
Yeah.
Now, what she does with her life now, I don't know, but she's got a little bit complete. And I think there are a lot of people out there that do have unanswered questions, and they feel like they're, I don't know, they live in the past rather than in the present, if that makes sense, because they have the unanswered questions. And I think it's nice to hear a successful story of adoption. The other thing that I want to talk about is, you mentioned that there wasn't much affection. Even though you adopted, you didn't see much affection going on. Did that make you harder to bond with people or show affection yourself as you got older?
A couple of people have told me that. Have I felt that myself? A couple of instances. But no, I don't really see that a lot.
Have you got children of your own now?
No, we haven't.
Because that would be a different level of understanding, once you become that parent. It's a different level of So I wonder how you would have reacted. Would you want to adopt yourself or foster yourself?
No, I'm, having spent a lot of time working with kids, I am pro kids. My wife isn't. So, I mean, I knew before I proposed to her, I knew that we weren't going to have any kids, that she didn't want to have kids.
Yeah, you got locked, haven't you? You got locked. In a sense, even though you physically don't have those children up here and in here, you've got lots of children that you're going out there to teach to, haven't you? You're teaching.
Well, I did. That's what I did a lot of. Yeah, I did a lot of. We've got a couple of dogs, and we've got a couple of pigs as well. So they're kind of like, the dogs particularly are almost like children substitutes. I did a lot of work with kids, and really enjoyed that. I mean, you used the word awakening. I find kids curiosity and their willingness to that open-mindedness, I find incredibly inspirational and humbling for me, in a world where, me included, right, incredibly, you know, people use the word mindset, and I think, you know, a lot of us are, our minds are set, you know, whereas kids are whatever the opposite of set is, mind jelly rather than mindset, mind wobbly. You know, they're just more open, and they will see the truth. They will see the truth about feelings and who they truly are, and what's going on for them, far quicker than adults. And I, you know, that is brilliant for me.
Do you feel, and I'm going to ask this question to you too, Joe, that the older we get is then we start to question life, rather than questioning the life when we're younger, we question a different part of life when we're older? You know, when we're growing up as kids, we I want to be this, I want to be that. We don't think about anything but the nearest nightclub, you know, when we're growing up, or just work Monday to Friday, but no, you know, or playtime. But as you get to this point now, you said 40, and that's where you decided to focus, and I use that word focus, on going forward and using your knowledge and wisdom to help other parents. Now, my question here is, how just do you help another parent if they don't have the same success story as you have?
Well, there's a couple of things that my awakening started about when I was about 40. Okay, I learned some stuff. My level of consciousness went up, so I went up that scale, and as and like a lot of us, we learn some stuff. Our life improves, and we want to help others. So that's that was a new idea that came to me during a conversation with my coach. So I said to her, I want your job, Liz. I want to be a coach. I want to help people. So that's a common, that's part of human nature. As we grow, as we, you know, like, even like, you know, the coaches like sports coaches, you know, they reach the end of their football career and they want to become a manager, or they want to, you know, they want to become a pundit, or, you know, they want to help others, they want to bring other people on, and it's just part of human nature. When we've learned something, we want to share it with others.
Yeah, but we have to remove the fear, don't we? Because, you know, a lot of people want to be in situations where they're raising awareness, but they're also afraid of repercussions, or the families or somebody might think of them by sharing intimate information out. You know,
well, I mean, I could pick that apart there. So if I go back to it, remove the fear. Well, I didn't have any fear.
Okay.
Well, I had a lot of fear about. I had fear about it not working out. And sometimes that stops me doing stuff, but most of the times it doesn't. So that bit, I'd go. What was the other stuff you're saying? What? How do I?
Yeah.
If other people haven't been through, you know, I've had my life. If other people haven't had a life like mine,
they weren't so fortunate like yours. You've got a nice, successful adoption story, and some people don't have that successful adoption story. They don't. But so there are parents out there searching for their children, or wondering, or even wanting to know if they did all not the right thing, not actually in that state of mind where you were. So
well,
what give me an example of somebody that's just come to you, heard your story, they then say, Oh, give me an example of someone you helped that had really concerns or worries.
Well, most of them say things to me like, I hadn't thought about it like that, Simon.
Yeah. Which then what do they do after that? Because I know what's about planting the seed. Once you planted that seed, it gives time to manifest and let somebody think about it. What happens then? Do
Well,
come out?
I've had an awakening.
Yes.
I've had an awakening, and something has, and it's been a series of awakenings and a series of rising up the level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I look to cause those awakenings in other people, and that's what they have, and therefore their lives change, and they wake up, and their minds become less set and more plastic, and they then move on, and then we go on that journey together, where they have more and more awakenings, but the awakenings, just because, so there's, if you say I had a good adoption, but I had some dark times around when I was 40. So if I'm talking, I talk about the dark times that I had when I was 40, and about 6 years ago, a lot of darkness came back to me. So I read this book, okay, by a lady called Nancy Verrier, and it's one of the big books in adoption circles. It's called The Primal Wound. And I thought, this explains everything. It said things like, adopted people don't like being rejected, adopted people want to control things, and adopted people don't like change. And I thought, this is me. This is me. And I thought, well, because, okay, so if these factors, these characteristics, whatever, these traits, if they are due to being adopted, then they are set in stone. I can't do anything about it. But then about 6 months later, I was speaking to one of my mentors, and then I had this massive another awakening. I thought, hold on a minute, nobody likes being rejected, nobody likes change, and everybody's trying to control stuff. So Nancy Verrier was pinning the tail on the wrong donkey. She was making a historical fact responsible for a human trait, and that's not how life works.
No.
So that is, that is an awakening, and that is the awakening that I try and I'll prompt and I'll question, and it's a coaching. I'm a coach, so I'm asking questions to get people to change. They change their own minds. They have their own insights, because there's no such thing as a second-hand epiphany. There's no such thing as a second-hand awakening. We have to have them ourselves. So a coach brings that out, and then your logo is flying. I can see it behind you, and then people fly, but the insight gives them, is, like people say, one of my mentors says, right, encouragement does for human beings what helium does for balloons.
Yeah.
It lifts us up, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a great metaphor of putting it. But and so that's what but you could say encouragement, but also insights, awakenings, epiphanies. That's what helps. But I've been in the dark, right? My darkness. I've been through a kind of like a really gentle middle class dark. It's been a 40-watt bulb. I haven't. My birth mother wasn't a prostitute on the docks at Liverpool. At Liverpool who was addicted to heroin, and tried to sell me into the sex slave. But suddenly, you know, Bernardo's came along and rescued me from the sex. I haven't been through that. I haven't been through that. I haven't been through that experience, but I've been through some darkness, and I know where that darkness can go.
What do you mean by dark? Look, you understand your terminology in darkness when painting a picture. What do you mean by that emotional message of darkness? What does that mean for you? Darkness, what does it mean? Because
so darkness, the darkness is the lower scale of the human consciousness. So I gave you that scale.
In English terms, or in language terms, or
shame.
Yeah, because these are words that you've learned.
Anger.
They are learned.
Anger, shame, anger, not good enough, beating myself up, thinking I'm a worthless piece of rubbish. Those are what I mean by darkness, the stuff that I talked about, the anger.
Thank you. No, please don't apologise. It's your terminology, and I use that terminology sometimes, but we're going to educate out to the viewers. You've put that under a title, which is in that bracket of darkness contains a lot of other words of emotions. So you mustered out these emotions. Now you go out there and deliver awareness and
help. Well, yeah, and it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that, because have you heard that? You know, you talked about identity, and we were talking about that recently, and you said adopted. Well, being adopted isn't part of my identity. Okay, so adoption is something that happened to me. It doesn't define me.
That's right.
It says on my Twitter and it says on my Facebook, I'm an adoptee, but that's only so people they can identify me. They can see, right, this is a guy who's been through something like I've been through, so maybe he knows something, or at least I know. Yeah, but I don't define myself as an adoptee, right? So the whole identity piece for me is, well, Joe and I share a mentor, right? A guy called Michael Neal, and he posted his email, his daily email, inspirational email this morning, right? Was from a guy who have I binned it? Yeah, I binned it. So he talks about is a French bloke who says we're not human beings having a spiritual experience with spiritual beings having a human experience. Okay, you heard that one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a spirit. So we're talking about who we truly are, right? So my take on identity is that kind of that spirit, you know, or spirit or soul. What would you call that?
Carry on, I'll get back to that. Okay. What would I call it? My emotion of where I am. I am a spirit in passing. I'm a messenger in a sense, as well, delivering life and experiencing life. But I'm not afraid of dying, because I'm not afraid of dying, because I'm content to where I positioned my life now. I didn't, the universe lined that up. So if I look at the things that have happened, there are reasons, but they're reasons for my growth. They always use the terminology ashes to ash, dust to dust, right? So we rose from the ashes, we come from it. When I look at this life, and I look at that I'm speaking to you, a fully fledged human being. But when I watch things like David Attenborough or the nature channels, it shows us how we were born. It shows us how we were developed. It shows us that we were little squiggly little things. Now, there's lots of little squiggly little things out in the world, and they have their own love languages when they develop, and yet here we are, different shape or form of something amazing that we turned into something that can have a voice. But when we depart, we leave a very valuable message of a memory, and those that have encountered one another, and that's the experience. And if I've never met you today, I won't be sharing your journey because there's no message. The fact that I'm meeting you and giving messages, that's what continues the life. Messengers, messages, and messages. Some are negative. We need to avoid those because it will mentally mess with your head and you will pick up bad habits. And therefore, we choose to be around healthy options rather than the negative options, because as you said rightly, get to a point when things become negative, it can throw you off course and bring in illnesses and bring in death and behavior that can also affect other people. So when you're talking about where you are now, going out there to help other people, and I'll actually bring Joe into this now because he's been really patient. Sorry, Joe. You're spreading a message out there of hope, encouragement, and that, yeah, it happened. It's the same as me. I've been past victim of abuse. You can put those in any shape or form. You know, it's something that I don't want to say that I'm my abuse. I'm not. I have a message about it though, which is what you're doing as well. I have a message about it though, in order to the fact that it's going to help somebody else with the awareness, recognize and prevent their child from being injured in any shape or form. So it's about preserving life. That's what I am, where I am now, is preserving life. And so we're going to go over to Joe, because Joe, when I did an interview with Joe was telling me that your own parents did the fosters and adoption. Is that right, Joe? Can you remind me of your upbringing, please?
Well, no, my parents were my birth parents, but they fostered children when I was a child.
Yeah, right. So when you hear Simon's story, can you see what amazing message your parents have done for other people, taking them? Because I've been thinking since talking to you people, to a lot of people, what it does is it pulls me back into the stories of my own life, things and perhaps I forgot about. And the more you talk about fostering or adoption, it then puts me back into my life. And it shows me that along the journey, we are passed around sometimes, and we are learning different things of different people and different love languages, different behaviors, some good, some bad. And we have got lost children in the world. And it's your job and my job to go out there and raise awareness of, hold on, there's more to life than those labels or once was. And as an adult, we are in control of our destiny. We're in control of our thoughts, our visualization, and the actions that we take in order to have that change. And that's where you guys are now collaborating and networking. How you brought Simon on here, Joe, and it's amazing because you've got a valid message to have given today. So you tell us a bit. Come on, Joe. Joe's a bit quiet. Joe, feel it out. Go on. You know you can do this.
Well, what you was talking about earlier, kind of, when you said, why is it kind of we're older a lot of times when we kind of have this change? I mean, I think for me, and kind of hearing other people, and I mean, it included Eckhart Tolle as well, the spiritual teacher, is that I think you just get to a point where like your suffering kind of gets so bad, it kind of either awakens something within you, or people will take their life. And it's kind of, it gets to that point where it's kind of that branch really. Mm-hmm. And so it's just so much that your body can't take it anymore, and it awakens something within you. Because I wasn't actually looking for a spiritual journey when I kind of found it, but I happened to read a book by a lady called Mara Olsen. And that was kind of what started me, and it clicked with me because I'd read the book a couple of years before and I just didn't get it at the time. And so you get to a point in your life where you're ready for the awakening. And so it's...
Should we change the word? I mean, we know the word awakening. Let's change the word to those that are trying to learn.
Or realization. I'd say realization is something I could use, a word I think you could use.
And I always say, even that awakening is the point where, right, I've had enough of that behavior or this situation or what's going on. I've just had enough. Now, when people get to I've had enough, there are options. Before those options, there's a pattern, obviously, and then and some people can end up going into drink, drugs, alcohol, bad behavior, domestic violence, all of those things that come into it, and they get to the point where they go, I've had enough of this life, and the only person that can do that change is them. But this is where they get stuck, because if they don't have the right guidance of somebody like myself or you and you to say, well, yeah, hold on, we've got the tools, we know how to do it, we know how to make it a little bit more easy and manageable and palatable and understandable, we'll show you the way, we'll lead you, but it's up to you to apply action, because you can't, you know the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So, and what I've also understood is that some people, they flit in your life temporarily, home in on the idea, but retract, and they retract for a little while because they're not accustomed to change. And it is the idea of change that it's and then they keep doing a little bit by a little bit until they go, you know what, I really have had enough of this world now. Particularly if they're like gone onto alcohol, gets to the point when you can hit rock bottom, and it's not until you hit really rock bottom, you really do have to make that choice for yourself. And again, 1 in 4 people die of suicide. 1 in 4 people suffer from depression, but you know, I'm going to say at a rate of 1 person every 2 seconds dies of suicide because they are undecisive of their life. And I mean that to the point where they made a decision to end life based on not having the tools to get out of the experience that they're actually feeling. And so sometimes there's not enough messengers around, I'm going to put it that way, healthy messengers around to guide people. Again, fear is a big thing.
I think as well, I was going to say, the way we see when you kind of get suicidal thoughts is kind of, for me, what I've kind of learned is actually it's a message that is trying to wake you up, and it's actually telling you to kill the life that you've been living, or the way you've been suffering, or the way you've been thinking. It's not saying, it's not saying you should leave this world. It's saying that you need to change, and it's a wake-up call to you.
Yes,
so right. It's something, you get the thoughts, but it's not to be afraid of. It's a message, and it's trying to, again, wake you up or give you that realization that actually there's another way.
I love the way you put that. Because it is, the way you put that is, you're saying you've had enough, but got to find a way forward. The things like pursuit of the truth regarding mental health, again, these are good therapy sessions and good awareness, because anybody that is raising awareness or giving back, in a sense, from their own personal experiences, we should listen to, in a sense, because if you're all latching onto those kind of ways and you're all living happy, into a sense, and dealing with life and exploring life and making it bigger than what it's ever been for you, then someone's showing the right way. I'm interested, Simon, for you, do you actually do workshops for people to attend your workshops?
Most of my work is one-to-one at the moment. I did do my first group workshop on Zoom last week.
Good.
For adoptive parents. So this was through one of the big adoption charities called Adoption UK. So yeah.
So you support them, Adoption UK.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, because I get a lot more information out there regarding these, because it's not something you actually hear unless you're in that profession of giving awareness. I'm just a public bystander, but I don't hear much about it apart from the adverts on telly. Do you know what I mean?
It's a small it's a small in terms of the number of kids born each year. Oh, sorry. Well, there's approximately 650,000 kids are born each year in England. Okay, 650,000 in England, and approximately 5,000 kids are adopted each year. Right. So they're not, obviously not. Adoption used to be mainly babies. When I was a kid, when I was around, I was adopted as a baby. These days, it's completely different. It's, so it used to be like 97% of unmarried mothers had their kids adopted. Now it's the other way around. 3% have. 97% of mums keep their kids. So the reason.
And a lot of them are fighting for those on the other side of the scale of that. Like I said at the beginning of this, sometimes I'm dealing with people that are so deflated because they've had their children taken away, and it's those people that don't have their minds settled, and so therefore every day is a complaint, every day is I'm depressed, every day is I'm going to blame someone, every day is I'm going to belittle myself, every day is a self-harm or an extra drink. And you know what I have to say to those mothers? Because I have no idea what it's like to be a child in care. They have no idea what it's like to be fostered out and wondering who these strangers are. That's good. If you're going to give a child stability, stability is what is needed. But when stability is not there, it causes a detrimental effect on mental health scar tissue. And it's that scar tissue of all of the emotions that you pulled out earlier, Benn, of rejection, abandonment, desertion, discarded. Why couldn't they put me first? Resentment, self-loathe, anger, and all of that goes in internally, and that goes on for years until, and this is just prime examples, goes on for years, and then people end up in domestic violence. They ended up again in with self-harm and addiction, and the cycle begins again. So it's very important for your message and the messages that you are putting out there to give people that hope, that journey of there is light at the end of the tunnel. But if you can fix your life now and get it stable and replace negative behavior with positive, one day those children will come back looking for you, and you better be prepared to answer questions, but be a role model. If you made a pass, something happened that you didn't have guidance, maybe you thought you wasn't a very good mum. I never thought I was a very good mum because I was dealing with other emotional baggage from childhood. So I almost wanted to give up my child because I couldn't manage my emotions. And the emotions that I couldn't manage was because I was a damaged child. And so going and being pulled from pillar to post, I'm grateful for, I know it sounds horrible, but somebody has to take children in that when parents are not able to. Somebody has to do it. And if it wasn't for people that adopt or foster, then I believe that the outcome for some of these children would be terrible. There wouldn't be hope. It would be, I don't even want to imagine. I'm going to leave that right there, but it would be horrible. So what I'm saying is thank you for doing what you're doing, because you put a different spin on it. You do put a controlled spin on it. But if I look at it deep down, that's why I further prompted you. There was problems there that affected you, and then you had to figure it out. And this is what you're doing now. You're helping other people and raising awareness. You are bridging given those unanswered questions. So I'd like to give two aspects of when we are doing awareness, spare thought for these children, and also for the parents that may not been able to make a decision, but the decision could have been based on fear. The decision is based on lack of education and lack of support. The decision sometimes is perhaps for the best if people don't trust themselves. But get parenting classes, take them, take self-esteem courses, jump on Pursuit of the Truth, understand, listen to people like Simon, listen to people like Joe, listen to people that are giving back, because they're your door to hope. Before the internet, there wasn't much conversation going on, and all of these things were hidden and they were not brought to light. They were not understood. But now we have the internet, we can do so much more better, but it does unearth the thousands and millions of people out there that may share the same journey as you. I just think that us coming here together today, I'll also now, and my journeys of what I do, suicide prevention, mental health awareness, is, and I also advocate as well on the mental health side, particularly people that have developed, like, of course, I can't dismiss that, yes, there's a wonderful awakening, but I cannot dismiss that there are people out there that are still managing their mental health and they're still in recovery, and that we do, it's like a little bit of an addiction of somebody that had a drink. Every day they say, one day at a time. It is no different for somebody in recovery from mental health trauma, scar tissue, or some kind of disability that they're trying to deal with. One day at a time. Yes, we live in the moment, we live in the here and now, but if we don't live with positivity thoughts, then we will go back to the darkness. So every day we have to try something different to replace that cycle that was installed in us, and everybody else's personality that has been can't find the words, pushed on us. People's opinions have been pushed on us, and when you get to the point where you think, does anybody's opinion really matter for the journey that I'm going on? It's fine to listen, but the ultimate decision is always going to be yours. That's enough for me, Joe. Is you want to like to elaborate on anything else and where we can find you guys and what's coming up, and what we've got, where they can find you, Joe, where they can find you, Simon. Please, if you want people to come to you and people you want the help and support, please tell us where they can find you.
Joe, do you want to go first?
He's muted.
Yeah, and we've at the moment we're doing a webinar with Mind Over Matter on April 7th with Pursuit of Truth, which is a group who have all been through their journeys of mental health suffering and addiction, and so we will be talking about how we've moved forwards and had our realizations and had the change in our life. And so that will be happening, and you can come back to you with the website if Simon wants to kind of talk about.
Sorry?
So yeah, that was a great sum up, Kerry. If I could just sum it up in a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
So somebody asked me if there was hope last week. You know, they asked me if there's hope. They had some problems with their development of their adoptive child, and there is always hope. Yeah, there is always hope, and for me, the hope. So Joe and I share this mentor guy, this guy called Michael Neal, and he has this fantastic metaphor. He's the king. He's the master of metaphors, right? The hope is in seeing the perfection of who we truly are, that spiritual being underneath everything that we've been through. So you know, I believe that we are, as this guy Michael says, I believe that we are all diamonds.
Mm.
You know, in our essence, the essence of our spirit and our soul is that of a diamond, and we go through life, and manure happens to us, all sorts of different manure, and that manure hides the diamond, but it doesn't change the diamond. That diamond is always there, and it is unwoundable. So the book that I was talking about in the adoption world is called Primary Wound. Primary wound, and that's a very foreboding and horrible thing, isn't it? A primary wound, right? I'm working on I'm doing a lot of coaching. I'm focusing on coaching at the moment rather than writing, but I keep on rewriting and my book. My book, if I was going to counter it, would be fundamentally unwoundable. Fundamentally unwoundable, because although we feel wounded sometimes, the nature of the human spirit is that it is unwoundable. And if we look at a diamond is the strongest substance known to woman and man, and it can't be damaged. That human spirit cannot be damaged. It can only be hidden. It can only be hidden by the manure that we go through and the manure in our heads. But the manure in our heads and the manure in our hearts and the manure that we've been through doesn't define us. It doesn't change our essential nature, which is one of perfection, unwoundability, brilliance, sparkliness, and as Shirley Bassey sings, diamonds are forever.
It's a good way of putting that. That was a really nice way of putting that.
And that is where the hope is. That is where the hope is. And if people want to check me out, I've got loads of podcasts and resources on my website, and it's Simon Benn with 2 N's.co.uk. So people can check me out there. There's some podcasts that I've done for adoptees. There's some podcasts that I've done for adoptive parents. There's a load of resources about improving your videos about improving your children's emotional well-being and their mental health, whether they're adopted or not, and simple metaphors and understanding. Because if we want our kids to be more resilient, then we need to become more resilient ourselves. Because as Gandhi says, we need to be the change that we want to see in the world. And so if we want our kids to be better, we have to become better.
Thank you. Just one other thing before we go. Would you come back and appear with us to give this take to other people that need to hear your voice? Because what I want to do is I'm addressing children in care homes. I'm addressing the adoption process and also the foster process, the do's and the don'ts, what we can do to better parent so these things don't happen. And the awareness is key in all of these situations, because when we talk about adoption, we all talk about fostering. We also look at the word parent alienation and where's it coming from, and the damage that we do to the children. So when if you would like to come back when we get that up and running as a workshop, because we'd like to cover all aspects: self-esteem, replacement of addiction, and helping other people for sure. Because what we do is it each one teach one? Was it teach one? Yeah, something like that. What we do is once you give the message to one, it kind of like becomes a ripple effect of have you heard? And that's what we need. Have you heard? There's a new way to what we've ever been accustomed to. People are going to be taking their time with you to help you through this process. And so when we talk about giving therapy or giving help to individuals, sometimes there isn't a quick fix. It's a learning process. But can you sustain and do teamwork into helping somebody else? Is that what I'm saying? There is no I in this world. There is a me, myself, and I, yes, as an individual. But if we take the stance of, I will only help when I'm getting better, we won't get better quick enough because the tools are not there. And we are learning these tools from other people. So when somebody has the right kind of way to free up the mind, then it's a positive outcome. And so it's showing the way to well-being and recovery. And that's because of the pursuit of the truth. That's the way I look at it. Now, I'm Kerry Mussington. This is Jo Fletcher from Suffolk in England. Simon, what part of the world are you from?
I'm from, I live 10 miles from York. I live in a tiny village called Huntingor. Huntingor, exactly. Who's heard of it?
It's a foreign language to me.
It is a foreign language. It's 10 miles from York as the crow flies. So yeah, and I didn't answer, you asked a question if I would come on when you've got the new program. Yes.
I'd love to come back. And the thing is about rotation, please do come back, even if you have to tell your story every couple of months. Come back if you want to, because use the platform. I hope you're on it. Mind Over Matter gives back. That's the page where you find some of the events. The Mom Project, Mental Health Awareness, Real Talk. I think I said that completely wrong again. Find the Mom Project, you can, www.momproject.co.uk for more information. I think you're on the website, Joe, or you're going on the website. I'm not sure for fibre. Sorry. Oh my gosh. I can see it in my head. I can see it in my head. Joe did a conversation about ME the other day, right? Chronic fatigue syndrome.
I've got something came to me, is that we are part of nature, aren't we?
Yeah.
And nature is resilient, and it always is going towards healing. And if you look, when they had the Californian fires, I mean, that completely wiped everything out. But 2 weeks later, green shoots have started to appear again.
Exactly.
And if you look, when we break bones and that, it's always healing. And so constantly nature is moving towards that healing. And we kind of pick at it and that, and we pick the scabs and we try and stop it. But then if we kind of let it again, it will bring us back to that. And so there's always that hope that nature will heal us. And we always have that healing that we are going towards.
And you heard that? I'm going to leave that right there. Hope, healing, never give up, never give in. Try something new. If you struggled with anything around the conversations that you've heard today, please do contact me directly on 0777 060 1567. If you want to know more about adoption, even though we've given you the links, that's fine. We can connect you with these people as well. But if you personally need a conversation around anything that you've heard that may be disturbing, please do contact me. That's what we're here for. Mind Over Matter. I'm Kerry Mussington. This is suicide prevention, mental health support. Okay, so we are just people that have a lived experience. That's me. Over to Joe.
And that was Simon Benn talking about his adoption and his recovery.
We are Mind Over Matter. Thank you for watching.